Okay, according to my computer, it looks like I am now live. Wow, that took me a few minutes. Okay. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm not sure why, but I was in slow mode and it wasn't talking to the server, but it looks like everything's up and running. Okay, everybody, so welcome. This is a stream that is not our normally scheduled stream, but my grandson asked me to make him a little costume. So I decided to do a bonus stream and just walk you guys through the whole process of making this little costume. And I'm so sorry for the technical difficulties. I had a computer crash last week. I have a new computer and trying to get everything reconnected back to the YouTube server was interesting, but I got it all done. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to shut some of this extra stuff off so it doesn't cause me any problems. Okay, so let me pull this up. All right, so it says I'm live, and if you can hear me, that's super. So if you will, go ahead and just drop in the chat. Let me see, I've got the chat open on this window and I've got this over. So if you can hear me, yay. So for those of you who are new to this channel, this is the Jelly Roll Club. And what we do is you guys ask for things and I create them. Sometimes my technical advisor, also known as my grandkids, they ask me for things. And so that's what we're doing today. So let's get started. For those of you who don't know, what Lucky Number 7 is. It's a children's show. The BBC has it. And the little costume that my grandson is in love with looks like a little set of cubes like you see in primary school. And they're little numbers that you link together. So you link them together and you make a set of little cubes. And he's in love with the number block character that spells the 7 because he's very lucky. So let's go through the supplies that you're going to need to make the little costume. And so this is a toddler size costume. My grandson is 3 years old. And so for this costume, you're going to need 2 fat quarters. I just found some super inexpensive fat quarters. You can get any color you want. Let me increase this up so you can see. You can get any color fat quarter you want. You can get black, gray. It doesn't really matter. You can even use a scrap, but you're going to need 2 fat quarters. And I did not wash them because this is going to be a Halloween costume. I'm not sure how long it's going to last. And so I just folded both of these in half. Okay. Now the first thing that I did for my grandson was measure. So I measured him across the chest, and let me just move this camera. So I measured him across the chest and from his neck down to his knees. My grandson was 20 inches long from his neck right here, right where his collarbone goes, to his little knees. And I wanted the costume not to exceed his knees because I don't want it to be a tripping hazard. And so that for him was 20 inches. So I'm going to make this costume about 17 and a half. And that gives me room for straps at the top. And it also gives me room for it to go down to his knees, but not go any longer so that he doesn't trip and fall. Okay? And so if your grandchildren love number blocks, the BBC cartoon, then this is the place. Okay, so let me show you what's going on. The first thing that I have here is the 2 fat quarters, and I'm just going to trim them to the size that I need. And let me show you how I'm going to cut this, okay? Let me shrink this down. So the first thing that I did is I just ironed them. If you notice, these are just pressed nice and flat. And this is the 18. So fat quarters are usually like 18 by 22. So this is 18 and a half inches this way. And so I have folded it with the 20-inch length to the fold, right? And so I have 2 fat quarters, and that's the first thing I need. The next thing that I did, and I tried to make this as inexpensive as possible, is I found craft felt, so this is not wool or anything fancy. I paid 49 cents for each of these. So, you know, for just a few dollars, I was able to get these fat quarters for 99 cents. And I was able to get these little pieces of craft felt for 49 cents. So my goal was to try to make this costume for under $15. And so the next thing that I found is I found a piece of Fusible Fleece. I got it for $4.07 a couple days ago. And this is the Low Loft polyester. And if you notice, it's ultra thin because you don't want anything too thick. And it's fusible on one side. So we're going to be ironing that down. So that's the first thing. And so, yeah, my grandson wanted to be a number block. I didn't find any number block costumes at the store. And so, of course, being the sewing grandma, I'm going to make that. So I have that. Then for my measurements, I took my measurements and I knew what I needed to cut. So I just used my big ruler. I have just a big ruler, and I noticed that this ruler was exactly 7 inches across, well, 6.5. And so I thought this is a great ruler to do what I need to do. So I got myself a nice long ruler, and with the folded side away from me, I straightened up my fat quarters and I cut 4 pieces of this fat quarter. I just cut 4 pieces that in my case were 7.5 inches wide by the length of the ruler, which is 18. So it's 18 by 7.5. So I made 4 pieces. And let me show you what they look like when I cut them. So once I cut the pieces, they looked like this. And I had a piece left over on the end of my fat quarter that looked like that. That piece that I had left over, you measure it so that you can see, was not quite 2.5. It's like 2 3/4. And so I'm going to use this particular piece for my straps. So I'm going to start by making the straps, so you can see how I made those. And I'm going to set all these pieces aside. So I'm going to take these 2 panels, 18 inches by 7 inches. These are a little bit bigger than 7. I made them 7.5 because I wanted to add a seam allowance. So 7.5 by 18. I had my piece left over on the fold, and I'm going to use this for my straps. So the first thing that I'm doing is I'm going to fold this in half to the inside and just kind of finger press it to the crease, and then I'm going to fold it over to the inside because I want a nice sturdy strap. My grandson is a boy and he likes to jump around and he's kind of hyper, so I want to make sure that the little straps that I make for his costume are nice and sturdy. So I'm just going to press that. And lucky number 7 has a lot of 7s in his costume, so I'm just going to fold it in half and in half again. So if you notice, this is folded in half and in half again. Okay, let me see if there's too much exposure on this. There we go. Is that better? Sometimes the light is so bright that it makes it hard for you to see what I'm doing. All right. And so I'm just going to take, and like I said, I folded the leftover piece from where I cut my 4 pieces, and I have this nice long piece that is the length of my fat quarter, and this piece is folded to the inside just like you would quilt binding. So it's like extra wide quilt binding. And then this is a total of 1.5 inches is what I have left right now. So now I'm going to measure this right here, and I'm going to cut it. Let me just use my ruler. I'm going to cut these into 2 segments that are 7 inches each. So lucky number 7 gets 2 7-inch straps. So I'm just going to cut it 7 inches. And 7 inches. And these are going to be the top straps of the costume. So 2 pieces, 1.5 inches wide, folded like this. And now I'm ready to sew the 2 little straps. All right, let me switch my camera view so you can see what I'm doing. And let me move this over here. So if you notice, there we go. I'm going to take, and on my sewing machine, I'm going to zigzag across the top, and on the open side, I'm just going to sew a straight stitch straight down. So I'm just going to come over here, and I'm going to put my machine on a regular zigzag, and I'm going to zigzag that end closed. And then I'm going to come down the side that's open. And let me get the scissors. I've already started the costume, but I'm going to sew a zigzag down that side, and then I'm going to come on this side, and I'm just going to straight stitch down that open side and close it to make my straps. So it's going to go straight down. I hope that's not too loud. Is that too loud? All right. So again, I switch it to zigzag. I stop at the end. I flip it to the side this way, and now I'm going to straight stitch down the side. Just straight stitch it closed. And so there I have the straps. If you want to sew, so they're sewn down one side, zigzagged across the top, and then this side is open. And that's okay if it's open because you're going to end up sewing that into the costume. So I have 2 little straps. And that's going to go across the top of the costume. So let me move my camera back out of the way. And so now I have my 2 straps that go across the top. And so as you can see, before you guys came online, I had already started working on the costume. And so this is one of the panels that we're going to be making. So I'm going to show you how to make one panel. You're going to make a panel for the front and a panel for the back, which is why we used 4 pieces. So these are the straps that are going to get attached to the top. And so this is zigzag closed on one side. And so you can put them in there. This little particular strap is ready to go. And so I'm going to tuck them kind of like at a 45-degree angle. Okay, so the next thing that you're going to build is this thing here, which is like the big body of the number block. And your costume is going to have 2 panels, one in the front and one in the back, because when the child wears the costume, they're going to wear this little number block just like this. I don't know if you can see that. Let me move this camera angle up. So they will wear it around their neck like this, and the little number block will go all the way down like this. Let's see if I can stand way over there. So it's like a little panel, right? My grandson is very small, and so he's going to be wearing that. And so if you have a child that's larger than my grandson is 3, and his chest measurement across his chest is 7 inches, and so his little number block is going to end up 7 inches wide, and he's going to wear his little number block across the front and his little number block across the back, and then it's going to get attached with Velcro tabs. So I'm going to have Velcro tabs on the top, and I'm going to have 2 Velcro tabs on the side. Right, and so this is how he's going to wear this little costume, if that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions so far? Is this making sense, what we're building here? All right. All right, so let me show you what I've got. So let me switch to 2 cameras. So we're building 2 panels, right? Because this little costume has 2 straps for the top that come out like this, and we have a long panel in the front, and this, here, let me push my camera all the way up. And so this little number block is gonna be worn down the front of his chest. So this is gonna be his neck, this is gonna be over his shoulders like this, and it's gonna Velcro to a back panel that's identical to this one. So if you notice, it's gonna have little shoulder straps, and then this is gonna go down the front, and I'm gonna put a tab on either side, so you can do those tabs with ribbon, like this, and you can just tie it around their waist. And so this just looks like a little block that's gonna hang straight down the front, and then you're gonna make a second one that's gonna go down the back. Okay, so let me show you how I make this big unit here. So we cut these panels, and I have 2 from my fat quarter, and so I'm gonna take this bit of fusible, and this is like a tone on tone, but I wasn't crazy about the print. I mean, this was just super cheap, and so I want the inside to the outside, and so I'm gonna take my piece of fusible, ultra thin fusible batting, and I'm going to trim it off on each side so that it's about a 1/2 inch shorter. So I'm just going to give this a little trim, and I'm going to remove about a 1/2 inch on this side, and it should fit like that. And then I'm going to remove about a 1/2 inch on this side. And the reason I'm doing that is so that I don't have the batting inside the seam allowance. Sewing with batting in your seam allowance is quite annoying, and so this one just prevents that. Okay, so I got rid of the excess. And so now I have 2 panels, and this one is smaller all the way around than these 2. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pin it into place, pin this entire thing together, and then I'm going to sew with a straight stitch down one side and up the other. I'm going to leave these open. And so I'm just going to pin that to keep it from shifting. Some people don't like using pins, but in this case, I think pins are good. If your sewing machine has a walking foot, you may want to use a walking foot. And if this stretches a little, which it can, you can always trim it just a hair. See, on this side, I'm just going to trim it with a little scissor. It doesn't have to be that fussy, but I'm just trimming the batting so that it doesn't go into the seam allowance. Okay. And then I'm going to pin this side just like that. Let me move my camera out of the way. All right. Hi, everybody. I see a lot of people are on here. First, we just had a few people, and now we have a whole lot more. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do now that I've pinned this on both sides is I'm just going to sew down one side and then down the other. Let me do that really quick. Just a straight stitch, nothing fancy. Nothing fancy at all. So let me switch cameras. Let me show you what I'm doing so that you can see me. And I'm going to take and just sew up one side and down the other. I'm going to back stitch at the start. So I'm going to back stitch up here at the start, and then I'm going to keep going. Okay. This one. Just going to go down one side. And I'm sewing just on the outside of the line of that batting to make sure that my batting is not in the seam allowance. Okay, so I'm going to take this now, switch. And so now that I have sewn on one side, I'm going to take that pin out, and I'm going to go ahead and fuse this. Let me move this camera. I'm going to go ahead and fuse the batting down before I sew the other. And that'll just keep it from shifting. I could have fused before I started, but I'm just going to go ahead, and this way I can make sure that that piece of batting lays flat and tight against that seam, but doesn't go into that seam. There we go. And so I want to get that as flat as I can. And so I am pressing now that fusible batting straight into that seam so it's good and flat. And that's just going to hold it in place. You don't have to press a lot. If you press it too much, it loses the glue and it gets distorted. So now I'm going to sew all the way down, right along that edge that you see right there, with another straight stitch. Okay. My childhood was always homemade costumes. We usually did not get store-bought costumes. There was a lot of us. I have a lot of brothers and sisters, and so making costumes is something that I got used to doing. I see other people commenting. It says, my mom made my Halloween costumes all the time when I grew up. Yeah, and sometimes you just don't find what you want, right? They have a lot of the same, you know, witch, pumpkin, devil, vampire costumes, but if you want something that's a little bit unusual, like a little number blocks costume, they just don't have them. Okay, so this is stitched on both sides, and now I'm going to turn this inside out. So I'm going to take, and I'm going to give it another press, because I want that to fuse all the way through. When you have this fusible, sometimes you can mist it with a little bit of water, and that just creates a little bit of steam, and then that fusible batting, in this case this is a little bit of polyester flat bat, it fuses it right in place. There we go. Yes, Tina, it does remind me of Lifesavers candy. You could be a lifesaver. I mean, if you had the words lifesaver down the front, so you could actually turn this into other things. Okay, so now I have fusible bat is attached, right? It's stitched on both sides, and I'm going to turn it inside out. So I'm just going to stick my hand in there because I left the ends open, and I'm going to flip it. Let me see, move this. I'm going to flip this around so that you guys can see what I'm doing. So now I'm going to turn it. I've got my hand, my arm on the other side, so it's open on both sides. There you go. And so now I'm going to take, and I'm just going to press it really, really flat, but not too flat. The reason I put the batting in there is because I want to give this costume a little bit of dimension. I don't want it to be just a rainbow colored rectangle dangling off of his body. I want it to look like a little number block. All right, so now that it's nice and flat, and I'm just using water in my mister. I don't use starch for this process. I've made my second panel. So now that I've got both of these panels, move this iron out of the way. Now I'm going to fold one side in. So I'm going to measure this, right? And then I see that it is 17.5. And so what I need to do is I need to divide this equally, because Mr. Lucky 7 has 7 colors. And they're in this order. It's lavender. It's like a deep purple. It's like a medium blue, green, yellow, orange, and red. The little cubes get linked together that way. I took and I measured the length of my panel that I have here, and I divided that equally. On my costume, that ended up being 2.5 inches wide. So that was super convenient for me, because I just cut them into jelly roll strips. This is the Jelly Roll Club after all. And then I folded the bottom of the costume, or the top, it doesn't matter right now. And I'm going to stick my hand in there and I'm going to fold it in. And then I'm going to stitch the straps into place. So I'm going to put this in here and I'm just going to finger press it and fold that down. It's easier if you take and you move that seam towards the batting, and then you fold it in. And then you take and you put a little pin in place. You can use clips. Clips work great for that. And so I start with one corner, and I'm going to take and I'm going to press those straps in. So this is the little top panel. I'm just going to press it. And I'm going to do the other side. And I'm going to press it. And so what I'm doing is I'm just pressing those inside those raw edges. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other end. I'm going to turn those inside. Right there, just fold it down, fold it down. And I'm going to press. And I'm going to take these sides in. And I'm going to press again. And I have my little panel that needs to be stitched together. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this end and the other side. And now we've got this all encased, right? I'm going to press this. Just give it a good tight press so that your corners are sharp. See how this corner's sharp and this one's not? That's because I did not fold that seam back. So if it doesn't lay flat for you, you can fold it and then do it again. And then when you push that seam to the side, now it lays perfectly square and flat. So if it's got a little kind of an odd shape, just refold that and stick your finger in there. All right. So now that I have this little padded rectangle with 2 open ends, I'm going to start the process of laying mine out. And if I cut these correctly and my math is not off, then I should be able to lay the number blocks in order with a little bit of overhang, and I should be able to lay these down. Now I could take a little glue and glue these in place, or you can just pin them in place. But I'm going to lay them all down first and check before I start sewing that I have the correct number and then I've done the math, because I can always adjust it. And ooh, look at this. It looks like my math is accurate. So for me, 2.5 inches And this is what I get. I get this little row. It looks like a lifesaver. And so I'm going to adjust them because I want these little pieces of craft felt to be equally distributed on either side and then wrap around the edges. So I'm just going to take my clips and I'm going to fold them over like this. I'm just going to hold them in place. But you know, it's a shame to spend so much money. This is my affordable alternative to Halloween costumes because they've gotten extremely expensive. A lot of Halloween costumes are $40 and $50. And so this little costume is going to cost a whopping less than $15, really. It's about $12 for all my supplies. So that makes me happy when I can be frugal. I love being frugal. Okay, and so there we have it. I have folded those. On the back side, it just kind of looks like this because I want the little pieces of felt to wrap around to the back. And so I'm just going to fold them over. If you're very picky, you can trim them, make them even. But I'm not super picky because this is just a little child's costume that might only get worn for an hour or two. I'm not sure. Unless he decides to play with it, right? These little clips here, I'm not sure. I've had them for a long time. The Wonder Clips, I think I probably paid like $10 for a pack of them, but it's been a while since I bought them. So I'm not sure what they're costing these days. I've had them for quite a while. But they're great for these kinds of little projects. Okay, and so as you can see, that's going to fit right to that edge. And so I'm going to fold that back and I'm going to clip it. Okay, so now starts the sewing part, right? So I have this thing that looks like a giant lifesaver, and I have it all clipped in place, and I have these straps that I've sewn closed on the ends, and I've got them like at a little bit of an angle. And so now begins the process of stitching. Let me bring this camera down so you can see. So as you can see, I've already started sewing these, and I'm just going to sew across that seam, and I have a stitch in my sewing machine that looks like a little railroad track, so it almost looks like hand sewing, like a ladder stitch. You can do that. If you don't want to see a visible stitch, you can just stitch in the ditch, and you could actually just glue these in place. And so I wanted to get like a little bit of this look, and so I just stitched those in place, and on the back side it just created these little quilting lines. Like I said, if you want them to be nice and even and not uneven like this, you can spend a little bit more time being fussy. Me, I'm not going to be too fussy because my grandson is probably only going to wear this for maybe a couple of hours. He might wear it after Halloween for playtime, but that's how I'm going to do it. So I've got this panel, right? And then I have this panel. And so how he's going to wear this costume is like this. He's going to wear this hanging down the front of his body, and then this hanging down the back of his body. And so these little straps will go here, and they'll connect over his shoulder with a little bit of Velcro. So I'm going to be using, I don't know, they call it hook and loop, Velcro. I'm going to be using Velcro. This is extra heavy duty sticky Velcro. So I'm going to put Velcro on the back of the back side so that he can attach this, and this will hang off of his shoulders. So his little head will come here, and this will Velcro to the back, just like that. And so I'll be able to just lay it on his shoulder and then Velcro it down towards the back so that he can wear the little costume. And so that is what I'm doing. So does anybody have any questions? It says $6 or $7 on Amazon. $10 for how many? Here they're at $1 each. Wow. Anita, where are you from? Okay. So now that I have this and I've got it all clipped in place, I'm going to take that off. I'm going to bring these over to the sewing machine. And now I'm going to sew down each side. So let me show you. You go back over here and bring this camera over. And so my sewing machine has something that, like I said, it looks like a little railroad track. And so I just pinch those closed with my hand. I pick the widest little stitch that my machine does. You could certainly zigzag it. You don't have to do the stitch that I'm doing. And I'm just attaching it here. I've loosened the presser foot pressure on my machine. So mine has more pressure or less pressure. Or you can use your walking foot if you want to use your walking foot. And so I'm going to move my hand out of the way. And so mine just kind of sews. I've got it centered. And I kind of push those together as I sew. And then that's the end. And I do that, and I'm just gonna pull the string, and I have sewn across, and you can see it looks like a little railroad track. Can you guys see that? Let me move that over. So I'm gonna continue sewing right through this. I can push it together a little bit more if I want to. But it's just going to go like this. It doesn't have to be super fussy. And so I will make a total of 2 panels. Now, when I started at the bottom, I stitched this one first. So I stitched that closed, and then I started putting these down. So the very first thing I did is I took this, and I just stitched that closed with my regular straight stitch on my machine. And then I stitched that first red one into place. And then I just worked from the bottom up. And that's what I'm doing to make the little front panel. Nothing fancy. As you guys can see, I just stitched it closed. Took all those threads off of there. Put that red one down and flipped the little clips back and stitched that first row, and I just started working my way to the top. Once I get to the very top, I will just sew that closed. And the reason that I haven't sewn it closed yet is because if I need to make any adjustments, I can. So I will just sew all the way down all of these little columns. And then I will have my 2 panels, right? One with straps for the front, one without straps for the back, right? And then I'm going to put Velcro on the back side. So on this one that goes on the very back, I'm going to sew a little bit of Velcro to the back side. Just like this. Put 2 little squares. It doesn't need a lot. That was just flipping up. I'm going to sew Velcro here and Velcro here on the back side. And then on the front, I'm going to sew the part that sticks to here. So on these little straps, you have to make sure that the little strap faces the correct direction. And so on the back side of this strap, I'm going to put 2 little pieces of Velcro like this. This is the loop portion. To cut one more. This has a little sticky back. And so that's going to have a little piece of the loop, and that will attach to that little costume. Is this making sense what I'm doing so far? Does anybody have any questions about how I'm building this little costume? How this is going to get attached to the little human that wants to wear it? There we go. And so then these I will sew. And so when my grandson wears this, he will now have a number block panel down the front and a number block panel down his back side and down his front side. And now I can put, if I want to, I can put a little bit of elastic. If I wanted to, run a little bit of elastic on both sides to keep it from flapping around, or I could do a tie, which I think I'm just going to use the other 2 straps, and I'm going to make a strap on either side like this, and I'm just going to Velcro it to the back. And that's how I'm going to attach this little costume to his midsection. So this will go across the top, and this will go over his shoulders, and it'll go down. And then once this is completely sewn, I will stitch that closed, and I will add these, and I will add some Velcro, and then this will wrap around his waist. Is this making sense? And so now that's all that he needs. He's going to have a little number block 7 that's going to go down his front and then down his back. So that's for the 2 panels for his costume, right? These are the 2 panels. So now you're going to have a little bit left over. So all that's left for me to do is attach these to the sides. Same thing, I'm going to put Velcro loops. And so when he wears it, it'll look like this. It'll have 2 straps on the shoulders and then 2 straps around the waist. And that's all that he needs. It doesn't need to be fussy, right? But then if you look at the little cartoon character, he has a headpiece. So number block 7 has a headpiece. So this is where you take the rest of your felt and you can use it to make a headpiece. So for my grandson, I'm going to be taking a piece just like this of ribbon, grosgrain ribbon, and I'm going to be cutting the little pieces that are going to go across the top of his head. So if you look at the little number block, he has these little things that go up and down. So I'm just going to take a pair of scissors, and actually they're all about 2 inches wide. So I was going to take a pair of scissors, and I'm just going to mark these so they don't need to be super wide. And I'm going to trim from each of the colors of the little number block another jelly roll wide strip, like 2.5 inches. And I'm going to stitch these to the front of this grosgrain ribbon. And if you look at Mr. Number Block, these little things stick up and they're curved. So they're going to be curved just like this. Curved across the top and curved across the side. If they're a little bit wide, you can just trim them down. And so they look like this, and they stick up. So these will get attached to here, and I'm just going to sew across and then sew around so that they stick up. And let me show you what I'm talking about when I say that. So this will get stitched across the bottom and like this. So let me show you. Okay. So this is how I'm going to make the little headpiece for the little costume. It's just like this. Just trim those up if you don't like how they turned out. But you're just sewing all the way around and through. And then I'm going to take the ribbon that I'm going to tie to his head. And then I'm just going to push the ribbon through there so that he can wear this on his head. And push it in there with a chopstick, with whatever you want. You stick it in there. Push it through. And you're going to put each of the little colors. You're going to build one of these little things, and they're going to stick up, and then he's going to be able to wear them on his head just like this. So these little guys, you can make them bigger or wider depending on who your grandchild is, and the little things can stick up. So some are shorter and some are longer, so I actually have to look at the little picture of the number block, and that's how I'm going to build the little hair that the little number block guy has. And so those can go around his head all the way around just like that. And I'm going to tie it in the back, and he's going to have all of his little number block pieces sticking up. And so I just used ordinary craft felt, and that's what I'm doing. I'm going to be finishing this up tonight. So if you guys have any questions, you can drop me some questions. If you want me to, let me see how many people are out there. We've got like 30 people. If you want me to drop a Zoom link in the chat, I can do that, or I can drop a Zoom link on the Facebook page, and then you guys can ask me any questions you want. We can chat while I finish sewing because I have a little boy who's waiting on a costume. All right, everybody. I appreciate you joining us. If this is your first time, welcome to the Jelly Roll Club. We make all kinds of things here, not just quilts, but a lot of things with jelly rolls. And so I appreciate you joining us. I thank you for being part of this journey. I didn't expect for the Jelly Roll Club to grow as much as it has, but I enjoy sewing, and quilting is my passion. I'm a teacher during the day and I'm a quilter at night, and so welcome. Don't forget to give it a like or a thumbs up, and if you have friends that want to make stuff with us, tell them to join us. We have a lot of projects, and our projects are free, easy, and cheap. All right, friends, I will see you later. I'm going to end this stream now, and I will drop a Zoom link on the Facebook page if you're interested in joining us. All right, that's it, friends.